Welcome to the Open Learning Campus, brought to you by the World Bank Group.
Welcome to this massive online open course, or MOOC, on climate change and climate action. We know today that all development is taking place in a world shaped by climate. It's why tackling climate change is fundamental to the World Bank Group's work. We also know climate change and poverty are inextricably linked. Ending extreme poverty and dealing with climate change are the defining issues of our time. They cannot be considered in isolation. And the reality is we cannot end extreme poverty or meet the global goals, the goals for sustainable development by 2030, unless we cut emissions and invest in greater resilience in countries and people to the impacts of climate change. We know the need for action is urgent. The World Bank's recent report, Shockwaves, Managing the Impact of Climate Change on Poverty, warned that without action, the impacts of climate change could force more than 100 million people into poverty by 2030. The world is already experiencing unprecedented heat waves, droughts, superstorms, record-breaking floods. Without action, climate change would likely spark higher food prices and threaten food security for people in the poorest regions of the world. It will also intensify threats to people's health due to climate-related diseases like malaria and diarrhea. We now have an historic global agreement on climate change, agreed to by 195 nations in Paris last December, to combat climate change and take action and investments towards a low-carbon, resilient, and sustainable future. The Universal Agreement's main aim is to keep a global temperature rise this century to well below 2 degrees Celsius and to drive efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. To achieve that goal, emissions should peak as soon as possible, and the countries will aim to achieve carbon neutrality in the second half of this century. This is a real turning point. For the World Bank Group, it means helping countries not only cut emissions through greater focus in areas like renewable energy and energy efficiency and innovating for the future, but also building up the resilience of people and countries to adapt to climate change. That means integrating climate change concerns in our development work and being climate smart, with a greater focus on measures like designing flood-resistant roads, buildings that can withstand storms, coastal protection, early warning systems, and climate-resistant crops for farmers. As the global community works to deliver on the promise of the historic Paris Agreement, you will be able to use the knowledge learned in this MOOC to help move your family, community, or country forward in achieving these goals. The videos and pedagogical material included in this MOOC will provide region-specific discussions on which mitigation and adaptation actions can be implemented to reduce emissions while also decreasing vulnerability to climate change impacts and building resilience to climate change. Join us in spreading comprehensive knowledge on climate change. The better we all understand the risks and challenges of climate change, the better positioned and well-informed we will be to act together and address the enormous challenges we face. Be part of the global conversation.